So guys, another day and we're back with some more transfer rumours. Today we've got a lot of stories to go over. We've got a few managerial appointments to talk over, a bunch more transfer rumours and some general news going around the league. So if you do go to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, get your thoughts on all the recent speculation in the comments down below. But before we do hop into anything, a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. You can check out the new OneFootball app in the top line of the description down below. Over the summer they've gone ahead and redesigned the app. It's looking really fresh now. If you want to keep up to date with all the recent transfer speculation, then OneFootball is a really handy app to have for that. And as we've got the new season right around the corner, it will be really handy to have for that. If you want to get live updates to your phone, all the latest gold news and everything like that, it is very good to have for that. So like I say, OneFootball, top line in the description down below. But without any further ado, let's hop into some of the recent news. So in Bournemouth the other day, we got the news that I think a lot of people were expecting. Jason Tindall has been appointed as their new manager on a permanent basis. Now, he's been at Bournemouth for the best part of 12 years as an assistant to Eddie Howe, so this was one where he was the front runner from the beginning, really. I think a lot of people saw this one as a sensible option. What's interesting about all three of the relegated clubs, really, maybe not so much Norwich because they've already been making quite a few moves in the transfer window, but for Bournemouth and Watford, when clubs do come down, we always see a bit of a revolving door in the summer. You know, it's a bit of a fire sale, but we've not really seen all too much of that with Bournemouth and Watford so far. Obviously, Nathan Ake's move to Man City was confirmed the other day, but with pre-season starting pretty much now, I'm interested to see who's actually at both these clubs come the start of the season, but I'm interested to see what Jason Tindall can do at Bournemouth there. And into Bristol City, who have appointed Dean Holden as their new manager. Now, Bristol City fans would love to get your guys' view on this. It's been a bit of a turbulent few days for you guys, hasn't it? Corey Smith has been one player, your captain, who's going to be departing after not reaching a new agreement with the club for a new deal. So in the last few days, Bristol City has just been sort of flipped on its head. You do get the impression that if this was the plan from Bristol City all along, then this could have been confirmed a long time ago. You get the feeling that when they did part company with Lee Johnson, they were asking around for a little bit. You know, we had all the stories about they've held several different meetings with different managers. You know, Chris Hughton was one who I know a lot of the fans were in favour of bringing in. A lot of big different names were linked, but in the end, they've gone back to where they started and they've appointed Dean Holden. So listen, it's a big opportunity for him. As of recording, they're also in advanced negotiations, and it looks like they're going to be bringing in Paul Simpson and Keith Downing into the backroom staff, two players who've worked with England set up in the past. Paul Simpson, the under-19 coach, and Keith Downing, the under-20s coach. Paul Simpson, he has done some great work with the England setup, but myself as a Preston fan, I don't have the fondest memories of him. He was manager of North End back in 2007. After a bright start, things went pretty drastically downhill for him at North End. So, I mean, listen, he's obviously done well from his time in the England setup, but Dean Holden, Bristol City fans, I want to get your reaction to this one because I'm not too sure what to make of it, really. Although one of the potential benefits from bringing in the two coaches from England could be the fact that Bristol City may be able to get first dibs on some of the bright new prospects coming up from the Premier League clubs. You know, we've seen Swansea go down that route with Steve Cooper and his links, you know, that enabled him to get some of the likes of kind of Gallagher and Ryan Brewster. If Bristol City are able to nail that route, then there is potential there. As well as the managerial news, we also had the news in the last few days of the wage cap for League One and League Two. Now, this also affects the Championship by the way of clubs getting relegated from the Championship in seasons to come will be severely affected by this. And you'd also imagine that the gap between League One and the Championship is just going to continue to grow. I think that in the past few seasons, with parachute money coming down from the Premier League, that gap has already widened between the Championship and the rest of the EFL. But with those same regulations not being imposed on the Championship, and I don't think you can find a way to do that on the Championship with how intrinsically linked the Championship and the Premier League are linked, it's going to make for some interesting times over the next few seasons because, I mean, we're going to see Sheffield Wednesday this season starting on minus 12 points. If they were to be relegated with this wage cap in place, they'd be put into serious jeopardy. So I'd also like to get your guys' opinions on what you make of that in the comments down below. But now let's hop into some transfer news. So one of the big stories going around the Championship over the last 7 days has been the news of Jamal Lewis. He's been heavily linked with the move to Liverpool. They had been put in for him, but that wasn't to be enough. I think £10 million was the benchmark, but Norwich reportedly wanting 20 million for him, and now Liverpool have set their targets elsewhere. So it's looking as if, you know, more than likely that Jamal Lewis will be staying at Norwich this season. I can't see anyone else really coming in with a bid of 20 million this summer now that Liverpool have moved their attention on elsewhere. So Norwich fans, I'd be interested to get your guys' view on this one. I think that in terms of Lewis, you know, I don't know, he probably will be a bit gutted himself, won't he? You know, you've seen how Liverpool have worked with some like Andy Robertson who made the move over to Hull. It fits into their transfer model of bringing up youngsters. Although I also think that another season in the Championship wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Jamal Lewis. You know, in the Premier League, I think a lot of that squad was thrown in at the deep end. You know, overall it was a very young and inexperienced squad, and another time round in the Championship to build on that experience from last time. I mean, I praised Jamal Lewis so highly last time Norwich were promoted. You know, him and Max Irons were a vital part of that system. I think that if he gets his head down again and shows what he's capable of at this level like he did last time round, there's going to be clubs coming in for him in the future. Moving over to Millwall, who have already made a few moves in this transfer window. They're continuing to look to strengthen their squad, and they have been linked with Derby fullback Max Lowe. Now, last summer, my side impression of them were very much linked to him, but this season has made a bit of a breakthrough at Derby. Made more appearances this season than ever before, made 24 starts with 5 appearances coming off the bench. Max Lowe already having that relationship with Garrett, with them both being at Derby in the past as well. 23 years old, I think that would be a really good move for Millwall, but would Derby be willing to let him go? Obviously, in the second half of the season, he was competing with Craig Forsyth, who had just come back from injury as well, so I'd be interested to get Derby fans' opinions on that one. We've also seen Millwall been linked with Corey Smith as well, as recently been released by Bristol City. I'm interested to see where he ends up next, because I really rate Corey Smith. He's just been so unfortunate over the last couple of years with injuries, but if he does manage to get himself settled and going again, you know, we saw towards the end of the season with Bristol City this time round. Good character to have in the dressing room. Watford have been linked to Wigan defender DUNKLEY. We've spoken on a previous video about Bristol City's connection to him. They're looking to reshuffle their back line going into this season. I'm fairly sure, looking at their current crop of defenders, I'm assuming at least a couple of them will be heading towards the exit door. So this is the position where they're going to look for a bit more depth in. DUNKLEY, decent in the air, scored a fair few goals for Wigan this season, 6, which isn't bad. There was bound to be championship interest in him. Not necessarily championship related at the moment, but it looks like Sheffield United will be getting Anthony Robinson for Wigan for a fee of just £2 million. That seems like an absolute bargain. Will be a fantastic option as a wing back for them. £2 million is an absolute steal, isn't it? Speaking of Sheffield United at the moment though, they are being linked to every championship player under the sun. Last week we spoke about their links to Matty Cash. As a cheaper alternative to that, they could be turning to Swansea's Connor Roberts. This one has been Ruben now. Second half of the season we've seen Swansea using that wing back system. They're after another right wing back. Swansea fans I'm sure will be keen to keep hold of a player like Roberts. We spoke about him on one of my previous videos where we were ranking championship fullbacks. I quite like Connor Roberts. A homegrown player at Swansea, so they'll be keen to keep hold of him. We'll see if any bids do come in. Another Nottingham Forest player being linked to Sheffield United is Joe Worrell. I think that over the last couple of years his game's come on leaps and bounds. That low move to Rangers last season really seemed to help out, but this season for Forest has played every single match this season, which in the championship with the intensity of matches, especially towards the end of the season, that's no easy feat. At 23 years old as well, English, that's going to check a lot of boxes for Premier League clubs interested, and with this being Sheffield United's pool for players that they always look towards, the link does make sense. The question I'd ask to Forest fans is, how much would you be asking for Worrell? And if you had to let one of Matty Cash or Joe Worrell go, who would you be leaning towards? And then continuing with Sheffield United, they also had a bid rejected for Bournemouth goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale. Now Bournemouth, I'm sure, will be very keen to keep hold of him. You know, to them, seems almost priceless. In what was a disappointing season for them in the Premier League, Ramsdale was one of their shining lights. A breakthrough year for him. He just won the Supporters Player of the Season award. And you're thinking, I mean, the amount of money that they've just recouped for a player like Nathan Ake, they're probably looking likely to sell Callum Wilson and Josh King. They'll get a handsome fee for both of them as well. They're not really in a position where they need to sell someone like Ramsdale, who in reality is a player that they're looking to build a club around. I think if a bid was to be accepted, you have to be pushing that probably 20 million mark, don't you? Another player that Bournemouth are going to be keen to keep hold of is David Brooks. There's been understandable interest in him. He did miss the majority of last season through injury, just making 8 starts for Bournemouth, but I mean, he showed the season before that, his debut season with Bournemouth, absolutely wonderful talent. Just 23 years old, his debut season in the Premier League, scored 7 goals and got 5 assists. We saw flashes of brilliance last time he was in the Championship with Sheffield United. Each of Liverpool, Everton, Tottenham and West Ham have all been linked with the playmaker, and the rumour at the moment is that Liverpool were planning a £35 million move for him. Bournemouth fans, would you take that? I'd love to see Brooks back in the Championship though for another season. I think he'd be great. And then we get into the hysteria of Brentford players. If you think of pretty much any Brentford player in your head right now, chances are they're being linked to a Premier League move at the moment. The one who most people are talking about at the moment is Ollie Watkins. Fantastic season, 26 goals as a striker. Several Premier League clubs have been linked to him. You know, Leeds United were one club who's been on and off with Watkins for a while now. Aston Villa seems to be the most concrete link to him at this point in time, obviously with that link to Dean Smith. I'm sure everyone's seen the reports recently about that £18 million release clause and things like that. Most people would assume that a move to the Premier League would be on the cards for someone like Ollie Watkins, and a move to Villa I think may not be the worst move in the world. They are in need of another striker. He's a different option to what they have at the moment, much more dynamic forward. They very much need to play to his strengths though. I feel like halfway through the season Villa lost their identity a little bit in the Premier League. They need to get that back. And the same rumours are also swirling around Said Benrahma as well. There's perhaps been maybe a little bit more interest from like top 6 clubs in Benrahma. He was being linked away as early as last summer. That one's going to take a massive price tag. And there have been several players who Brentford have already been linked to in terms of those replacements. You know, Ivan Toney's been one that we've spoke about quite in detail over the last few weeks, but one that I found quite interesting was linked to Jacob Brown at Barnsley. Had quite an underrated season in the end, scored 3 goals, got 9 assists, can either play out wide or up front. When Barnsley switched to that diamond in midfield and started playing 2 up front, Jacob Brown got a lot more licence in the final third in those areas. Good at at making those runs in behind, very good link-up play with those around him. Finishing, I wouldn't say the best, he's not the finished article, but this is the sort of player that Brentford like to take on and push them up to that next level. You know, when Ollie Watkins signed from Exeter, he wasn't the most complete player. Middlesbrough and Norwich are both battling it out for Burnley centre-half Ben GIBSON on a loan deal. For whatever reason, his career just seems to have stalled at Burnley, doesn't it? It's not worked out for him there, and the loan move back to the Championship does seem to be on the cards now. He was an excellent defender from his time at Borough. If recent reports are to be believed, then Borough are only willing to pay around about 12 to 15k of his wage to get him on loan. He's currently on 45 grand a week at Burnley. The local media for Norwich are reporting that Norwich will be able to offer a little bit more than that, so we've got a battle on our hands there for Ben GIBSON. Would be a great option for either. Norwich were also interested in Chelsea youngster Ethan Ampadu, however it looks more than likely that he'll end up going to Fulham. Can either play as a defensive midfielder or as a centre-back, would have been a really nice option for them, but it looks like Fulham's the more likely move at this point in time. Neil Warnock's looking to have a bit of a rebuild over the summer at Middlesbrough, and if they do significantly back him, they could be a bit of a dark horse next season. Junior Hoilett has been one name mentioned. Neil Warnock just loves a bit of Junior Hoilett, doesn't he? Worked with him at both QPR and at Cardiff. He seems to be his go-to man. His form drifted in and out, I thought, last season, Junior Hoilett, but he did come up with real sparks of quality. He scored 7 goals and 3 assists, so 10 goal involvement. Not bad numbers at all, really. Definitely an improvement on what Borough have got in those areas at the moment, I'd say. Luke AMOS was another potential target for Middlesbrough, although it looks like he will be making a return to QPR, this time on a permanent basis. I think he had a solid first season, I'd say, in the Championship. Would you agree, QPR fans? Kiefer Moore continues to be linked to every Championship club at the moment. Stoke City were another club who entered the race, but reportedly recently they've also pulled out of it. Cardiff still very much interested. Earlier on the transfer window, we saw QPR and Millwall. Middlesbrough under Neil Warnock have been another name mentioned. I think it'd be a brilliant option for either of them. Blackburn Rovers are continuing their search for a new #1 goalkeeper. Dylan Phillips has been the name on a lot of people's lips recently. I think would be their best option to go for, but another name which has emerged recently has been Ainsley Pearce at Middlesbrough. Now, this season was a bit of a breakthrough for him. He was really thrust into the first team at the start of the season when Randolph picked up an injury, and then when he departed in January as well, got to play actually quite a bit of first team football. However, Neil Warnock is reportedly in the market for a bit more of an experienced goalkeeper, so this option could become available to Blackburn. Interested to get Borough fans' opinions on what you think of Pearce, and do you think he has a future at your side? And then, should Middlesbrough be in the market for another goalkeeper? Alex Bash from Pompey was one particular player who I have seen linked. Perhaps not the experienced goalkeeper that Warnock's looking for, only 22 years old, but did finish the season really strong with Portsmouth in League One. George Friend has got a choice of where he wants to end up. Reportedly, he's had contract offers from Middlesbrough, Birmingham, Swansea and Nottingham Forest. Wherever he does end up does bring a wealth of Championship experience. I'd imagine he'd be one character that Warnock would be quite keen to keep around. Depending on where he ends up will be a question of how much football he's going to play. I think with some of those clubs will be more as a backup, whereas others would be thrust into that first team perhaps. I'm sure that Swansea fans would have been keen on Conor Gallagher returning for next season, but I'm not sure how likely that's looking right now. There's been quite a bit of Premier League interest as well as some clubs from the Bundesliga after a successful season in the Championship. Leeds United, one club who has been monitoring Conor Gallagher for quite some time now. If he does have the option to go to the Premier League and move back to the Championship, would look unlikely. Danny Loader looks set to join Porto on a free transfer. I'm very interested to see where he is in, let's say, 5 years' time. Reading really did seem to miss the boat on this one, because reportedly last season they turned down £7 million from Wolves for Loader. Didn't quite kick on last season like a lot of Reading fans thought he would, but in the future, like I said, I'm interested to see how he ends up. Dominic Samuel has been heavily linked with the move to Rotherham United. He's now a free agent after being let go by Blackburn. His career really stalled after he picked up that ACL injury. He featured quite a bit for Blackburn in the post-lockdown games, more as a sub really. Kieran Sadlier, who's also available on a free, has also been linked with the move to Rotherham at the moment. I think that this one will be an absolutely fantastic move. Had a cracking season in League One with Doncaster last time round. 11 goals and 6 assists. Very good at drifting inside from those wide areas. Got a cracking shot on him. I watched a compilation of some of the goals he scored from last season. He's definitely got it in his locker to score from range. Good in those tight areas, like I say. This one will be a really good option for them. I'd be surprised if there were more Championship clubs interested. I know that Wickham was a club I heard mentioned a few weeks ago as well. Liverpool youngster Adam Lewis has been linked with a loan move to Luton. Now, with Brendan Galloway out injured, this one would be a sensible option for them. 20 years old, looks a prospect for Liverpool and would come in to solidify that position for Luton. And we'll finish off with a bit of a mad transfer rumour. John Obi Mikel being linked with a move to Stoke City. Now, we have seen John Obi Mikel in the Championship before last season for Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough. I thought it was brilliant for them. After that, he made his move over to Turkey and has now been released by mutual consent, so is a free agent. Now, Stoke need to be careful not to fall into the trap once again, which they have done previously, of signing big names on big wages. Ultimately, it doesn't work out. You know, they give them a massive contract and they end up in a rut again. I like Johnny McKell on a sensible deal. I think could be a decent option. If he's going to come in as a massive earner on a massive contract, I think that that's something that Stoke need to move on from. We also how well Stoke ended last season. If they continue to build on that with the right transfer policy this summer, next season, you never know. But guys, there we have it. I will now wrap it up for today's video. I'm sure there was loads of transfer rumours that we missed out on today because we've had a bunch of them come through over the past couple of days. So my next transfer rumour video will be out just around the corner, as well, as I'm sure these rumours are going to continue to be churned out. But if you did go to enjoy today's video, guys, make sure to leave a like and please do subscribe for some regular Championship content. Your support lately has been absolutely bonkers on the channel. We are continuing with these daily uploads on the weekdays. But like I said, guys, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.